So we are making butternut risotto using baby butternut squash. So I got a Y peeler here. We just want to peel the whole thing. Always peel your butternut squash. The skin isn't very edible. Doesn't cook down easily, so it's kind of rough. And I've definitely made that mistake a few times, forgetting that it's not as edible. So always remember, peel the butternuts first. Also be careful because it starts getting slipperier. More slipperier. All right, there's that. Get rid of this. We got a little trash pile there. Alrighty. Let's cut the tips. Like so. Cut the base. Alright. And sometimes, depending on how young your squash is, sometimes you don't even get this. So this is pretty much harvested sooner than later, which is why it kind of gives it a slightly sweeter texture. Always just have a look. So this one does need to be scooped, but there's definitely been times where I've cut and it still hasn't developed, so I just don't need to scoop it out, but this one needs to be scooped out. Just like that. Clean station, clean mind. All right. We want to do small dice for this. So what I'd like to do is cut in, so like this, create little planks like that, as unison as possible. And then from here we can split this in half. And like I said, this does get slippery, so be careful. Align, stack, and then evenly cut. Take your time. All right. See, look at that. Perfect dice pieces. Nice. Put these in here. Finish up. Piece. These top pieces I actually like to do separately just because they tend to move a little more than these flat pieces. Also, the smaller the stack, the easier it is. So again, just take your time. For this guy, it can be a little tricky. So what I like to do is cut it in half. Cut it in half. And then here, cut the half ones like this. Okay. You know, kind of go with the angle, like so. Again, take your time. done. It's about a quart. I'm gonna say three garlics, crush. All right, now let's mince this. Also, a little trick that I learned from a chef a while ago. When you're cutting, always try to scrape with the back of your knife, just so that your blade stays sharper longer. Shallots. Cut the ends, cut down the middle. Peel. Let's do, this is a good, decent size, but let's just do one more for good measure. So we're gonna dice this too. Boom, 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 boom. Like so, and then just across. Back of the knife. Oh boy. Here come the waterworks. Do it with your eyes closed. Just kidding, don't do that. Last one. Ugh. We're good. I'm gonna say medium heat on this guy. We wanna get the garlic going. Say about a tablespoon of olive oil there. We also want to get our broth going. So when you're making risotto, you always want to incorporate hot broth. Pretty much like making rice. So when you make rice, it's kind of steeping in order for the rice to absorb. If you use it cold, you're constantly cooling down your rice, so it doesn't give it time to absorb. So if you start hot, immediately it'll start absorbing. So we want to be patient with this dish. Everything just kind of goes one at a time, slowly, slowly. It's very delicate, but trust me, if you're patient, it will come out great. In goes the garlic. We want to fry the garlic. So we want to add only the garlic first, so that the oil gets infused to give it more flavor. Because if you add shallots or onions or anything with lots of water, it's not frying anymore, it's sauteing. Okay, so now we're starting to fry here. So we want to wait till it gets golden, and then we add our shallots. Keep your eye on it because it can go quick depending on your heat level. That's why if you're doing other things, if you're like cutting other vegetables for any other dish, I always like to keep it low, medium, low heat if you're doing other things. But if you're just gonna stand here, it's okay to just have it at medium heat and just keep your eye on it. And as soon as it turns gold, throw that other stuff in there. The smaller bits brown quicker. And I'm just kind of keeping it submerged in the oil as much as I can. So this stove is a little tilted, which is why I'm kind of scooting it in a little more. Everyone's stove's different. See, so these are starting to brown here on the corners. So I'm gonna go ahead and add the shallots. Now we're sauteing. Or as my first chef used to say, sealing. She would say sealing instead of sauteing because it's sealing flavor. Still making me cry. These are strong shallots. Only the best. All right, so we're gonna let these cook till they're translucent, and then we will add our butternut. Our butternut. There we go. We want this to brown. This is also the perfect time to add our butter. Cube pieces just so they melt quicker. Spread out. like so. Let that melt. So salt always helps break down vegetables. So whenever I'm adding more vegetables into anything that I'm cooking, I'll just add a little bit just to kind of give it a head start. It'll help it sweat. Mix that in. Let that butter melt. And then we leave it alone. We want the butternut to brown, caramelize. I would even say, let's turn the heat up a little bit. So we're at medium. Let's go just slightly above medium. Now I'm stirring just so I can get that butter fully melted. So we're gonna let that brown. As we wait, we can also cut our sage. Get all the bigger leaves first. It's easier to cut. Smells so good. Grab a stack like that. Roll it up. And you can do this with any herb. And then there you go. Nice little pieces. Oh, well, these didn't come out as good. You can just cut a little more. That's good. Set aside. Do the rest. Cool. Now we wait. So just dump it all in at once. Not browning it, but it's getting there. You can see that it's cooking. You can see the browning at the bottom of the pot right there. It's a good sign. So once we get the broth in there, it'll deglaze it and all that stuff will come off. But for now, leave it alone. We're just waiting. Yeah. This is still browning, but our broth is starting to boil. So we don't need this to keep cooking. We just want it hot. So at this point, we can just turn this off and it's ready. Because if we keep cooking it, it'll evaporate. Just a tiny bit is starting to brown. Just give it another little spin. And then I'm gonna say maybe about another 4 minutes of this, and then we'll add in our rice and then start adding our broth slowly. Patience. Starting to brown here. Looks good. Now we're gonna add our arborio rice. Whoop. All that in there. Mix it in. Okay. And then add a little bit of broth. You can use a ladle if you want. A little at a time. Okay. So that first one is important. Once you add that broth, with a wooden spatula or a rubber spatula, you want to scrape the bottom because that's going to deglaze all the browning that happened underneath. So if you want to see here, I don't know if you can see this, but see how it's all gone now? So now we wait for the broth to be absorbed by the rice, and then we'll add more. I know it doesn't look like a lot of rice right now, but it will get bigger. So as soon as you see that it starts to thicken up, see, look, it's already absorbed. I'm gonna actually lower this just a little bit. It's absorbing already, so let's add about another quarter cup, half a cup or so. There we go. Mix. And we wait for that to absorb. Also, it's always helpful to taste the broth to see how the progress is going. This broth here doesn't have any salt, so I'm just gonna add a little more salt here too. As you can see, it's starting to absorb, it's thickening up. Wait a little longer and then we'll add more. Add a little more. Mix it in. Not quite ready for that next round. Give it another minute or two. All right. Let's add more. The first time I ever made risotto, I was impatient and I was just like, just do it all. And did not come out good. Also, I didn't use hot broth, so it was just kind of like lumpy and just not good. So please be patient. It's worth it. It's looking good. We'll let that absorb. More broth. Patient. I know this doesn't look like a lot, but trust me, don't put it all in. We're about like 3 minutes away. Add the rest of that in there. One final taste before we pull. Make sure that the salt levels are good. Okay. Turn off the heat. We'll add our sage. Sprinkle it all in there. Mix. This is ready. Straight down the center. And there we have it.